All right, let's get into it. For literally thousands of years, people have been using mindfulness to find a little bit of calm and clarity. But what's actually happening inside our brains when we do it? In this explainer, we're going to cut through all the noise and the fads, step right into the lab, and really explore the modern science behind a truly quiet mind. And this is not some new idea. We're talking 2,000 years ago. The Roman philosopher Seneca was already saying that our internal state, our mind, has the power to change our reality. That very idea, it's the foundation of everything we're going to talk about today. You see, the whole origin story of mindfulness kind of starts like a fairy tale. There's this prince, Siddhartha Gautama, who was kept inside a luxurious palace, completely shielded from any kind of suffering. But the moment he finally stepped outside, bam, he saw sickness, old age, and death for the first time. That shock sent him on this quest to understand suffering and how to move beyond it. He eventually became the Buddha, and he developed this practice we now call mindfulness.
So, that story brings us all the way from the ancient world smack into the middle of a very modern debate. Because on one side, you've got the ancient roots of this thing. I mean, it's a core practice in Buddhism, Hinduism. It's all about self-realization. And then on the other side, you've got this booming modern industry just packed with wellness apps and, let's be honest, a lot of money-making schemes, often sold as some kind of alternative to Western medicine.
So, this is the big question we're tackling here. Can we actually bridge that gap? Is there a way to look at this ancient spiritual practice through the super rigorous lens of modern neuroscience? To even try to bridge that gap, we have to get tangible. We need to look right inside the brain and ask a pretty basic question. Is there any physical, measurable proof that this practice actually does anything? And our search for proof, it doesn't start with a monk on a mountaintop. It starts with a skeptical Harvard grad student named Sara Lazar. Seriously, she wasn't looking for enlightenment. She was just trying to stretch out a running injury in a yoga class. And when the instructor would talk about focus and breathing, she'd literally roll her eyes. But then, as her PhD work got more and more stressful, she started noticing she was feeling calmer, less reactive. And she started to wonder, wait a minute, what if there's something real to this mindfulness stuff? So she put it to the test. And what she found was, well, it was remarkable. Lazar compared the brains of people who'd been meditating for years to a control group, and she found actual physical differences. Now, this looks complicated, but the key thing to see is right here. The meditators had a thicker prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your brain right behind your forehead that handles attention and focus, and they had a thicker insula, which helps you process sensations from your body. Okay, but that brings up the classic chicken or the egg problem, right? Were their brains already different, and that's just why they were drawn to meditation? So her team did a follow-up. They took a group of people who had never meditated before, trained them, and then scanned their brains again. And guess what? They found the exact same changes. This was the proof. Meditation itself was physically reshaping their brains. All right, so we've established that the brain physically changes. That's huge, but it leads to an even bigger question. How? What is the actual mechanism at work here? To get that, we need to talk about the brain's mind-wandering network.
To understand the how, you need to meet a part of your brain called the default mode network, or DMN for short. The easiest way to think about it is as your brain's autopilot. When you're not really focused on anything specific, the DMN just kicks in. It's responsible for all that mind-wandering, daydreaming, and especially for getting stuck in those loops of worry and rumination.
This brings us to another researcher, Judd Brewer. And kind of like Lazar, he was a stressed-out grad student who sort of skeptically stumbled into meditation. But he had this breakthrough idea. He knew the saying, a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. So he wondered, what if the magic of mindfulness is simply its ability to turn down the volume on this default mode network? So he put meditators into an fMRI scanner to see what was happening in real time. And the results? They were crystal clear. When the experienced meditators practiced mindfulness, the activity in their default mode network, that's the area you see here in green, it just plummeted. They reported their minds were wandering less, and the brain scans showed exactly why. They were literally turning off the autopilot. But here's the absolute coolest part of what he found. The change wasn't just temporary. The DMN of these experienced meditators showed quieter patterns of connectivity even when they weren't meditating. The big insight here is that you can actually train your brain to have a quieter, less anxious baseline. It's like exercise for your mind that builds lasting strength. You're rewiring your default state of being. So the science is solid. The brain changes. We know the mechanism. The next logical step then is to take this stuff out of the lab and see if it can actually be used to help people in a clinical setting. But to do that, you need a standard way to teach it. I mean, you can't run a real clinical trial on a dozen different spiritual practices. And this is where John Kabat-Zinn comes in. Back in the 70s, he developed this secular 8-week program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, or MBSR. It was a total game changer because for the first time, it was testable. And that one program led to hundreds of clinical trials and eventually to all the mindfulness apps you see on your phone today. So after all that rigorous testing, what did the science say? Well, the evidence was just overwhelming. These standardized programs proved to be effective for a huge range of conditions, everything from mood and anxiety disorders to OCD and even substance use. The data was just undeniable. Which leads us to a bit of a paradox. If the science is this strong and the clinical evidence is right there, why is mindfulness still kind of on the fringe of standard medical practice?
Well, a huge part of the answer is this kind of philosophical clash. Modern psychiatry is mostly focused on biology and pharmacology, what the source material calls a sick care system. Basically, you treat a crisis after it happens. Mindfulness, on the other hand, is all about mental training and prevention. It's a wellness care approach. It just doesn't fit neatly into the model we already have. And then you have the practical, systemic barriers. The whole U.S. healthcare system is designed to react to problems, not to invest in preventing them. It's set up to pay for things that save money for insurance companies in the short term, not necessarily what builds health and resilience for people in the long term. All of this brings our entire journey right back around, full circle, to where we started. Think about it. Thousands of years after the Buddha left his palace to confront suffering, here we are, stuck in the middle of a global mental health crisis. Our current approaches, they're definitely helping a lot of people, but they're clearly not solving the whole problem. So we're left with this final question. Just like the Buddha had to step outside his palace to really see the world for what it was, is it maybe time for us to look beyond the conventional walls of modern medicine and ask if these ancient practices, now backed by modern science, might hold a key to what we've been missing all along?